How's everybody doing? Can everybody please give a big round of applause to Dondre Young? Fantastic young man. Thank you for the introduction. Happy Halloween, everybody. I love your masks. Please give a big round of applause as well to Governor Gretchen Whitmer, your own. Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist. My buddy from the Senate, Debbie Stabenow. A man who's always in there fighting for you, who we need to send back to the United States Senate, Gary Peters. Your congressman, born and raised right here in Flint, Michigan, Dan Kildee. Mayor Sheldon Neely. And the big treat to come, the next president of the United States, Joe Biden. Three days, Flint. 3 days until the most important election of our lifetimes. I love you too. Listen, I know right now you got the Michigan State game, and that's a big deal. Paul Bunyan Trophy's on the line. But this Tuesday, everything is on the line. Our jobs are on the line. Our health care is on the line. Whether or not we get this pandemic under control is on the line. But here's the good news. On Tuesday, you can choose change. On Tuesday, you can elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. You can choose a better America. And what's even better news is you don't have to wait until Tuesday to cast your ballot, Michigan. You can vote in person right now. Just go to iwillvote.com. Find your polling place. Get out there and vote. And if somebody like you already voted, go help your friends and family make a plan to vote. Because we need everybody, not just some people. We got to get everybody out there. I love you too. Okay, that's it. Put that mask back on. Listen, Michigan, Joe Biden is my brother. I love this. I love Joe Biden, and he will be a great president. Now, I'll admit, 12 years ago, when I asked him to be the nominee for vice president with me when I was running, I didn't know Joe that well. We had served together in the Senate, but he and I came from different places, part of different generations. But I quickly came to admire Joe as a man who learned early on to treat everybody he meets with dignity and with respect. Living by the words his mom taught him. No one's better than you, Joe, but you're no better than anybody else. And that sense of decency and empathy, the belief in hard work and family and faith, the belief that everybody counts, that's who Joe is. And that's who he'll be as president. I can tell you, the presidency doesn't change who you are. It shows who you are. It reveals who you are. And for 8 years, Joe was the last one in the room whenever I faced a big decision. And he made me a better president. He's got the character and the experience to make us a better country. And he and Kamala are going to be in the fight. Not for themselves, but for every single one of us. And we sure can't say that about the president we've got right now. You know, I've said this before. I never thought Donald Trump would embrace my vision. I understood he didn't agree with my policies, but I did hope, for the country's sake, that he might show some interest in the job. He might take the job seriously. He never has. He hasn't shown any interest in doing the work or helping anybody but himself and his friends or treating the presidency as anything more than a reality show to give him the attention that he craves. But unfortunately, the rest of us have to live with the consequences. Almost 230,000 Americans are dead. More than 100,000 small businesses have closed. Almost 300,000 jobs are gone in Michigan alone. America just had its single worst week of new COVID cases. And what's his closing argument? Here we are, the worst week, this week. I mean, we've been going through this now for months. The federal government has had an opportunity to respond for months. And his closing argument this week is that the press and people are too focused on COVID. COVID, 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 he's complaining. He's jealous of COVID's media coverage. And now he's accusing doctors of profiting off this pandemic. Think about that. He said this just yesterday. Said doctors are overblowing it because they're going to make money off it. Doctors. He cannot fathom. He does not understand the notion that somebody would risk their life to save others without trying to make a buck. His chief of staff says, we're not going to control the pandemic. That's a quote. Said it last week. We are not going to control the pandemic. We noticed, Mr. Chief of Staff. We understand you're not going to control the pandemic. But you know who will? Joe Biden will. When we elect him president of the United States. You remember when Republicans were saying, let Detroit go bankrupt? You remember that? Now they might as well be saying, let America get COVID, because that's how they're asking. If Trump were focused on COVID from the beginning, cases wouldn't be reaching new record highs across the country. Some of the places he holds rallies have even seen new spikes after he leaves town. There was just a study by Stanford University that just came out showing thousands of people are likely to have gotten sick because of these rallies he's holding. What is his obsession, by the way, with crowd size? You notice that? He's always worried. This is the one measure he has of success. He's still worrying about his inauguration crowd being smaller than mine. It really bugs him. He's still talking about that. Does he have nothing better to worry about? Did no one come to his birthday party when he was a kid? Was he traumatized? What's with crowds? Well, you know, I've had crowds before, you know. Had quite a few. But you know, when a country's going through a pandemic, that's not what you're supposed to be worrying about. And that's the difference between Joe Biden and Trump right there. Trump cares about feeding his ego. Joe cares about keeping you and your family safe. And he's less interested in feeding his ego with having big crowds than he is making sure he's not going around making more and more people sick. That's what you should expect from a president. You can expect something different from a reality TV star, but from a president, you want them to put you above their own ego. Look, here's the truth, Michigan. This pandemic would have been challenging for any president. But this idea that somehow this White House has done anything but completely screw this up is nonsense. Canada identified its first case the same week that the U.S. did, right? Just a few miles up, right? It's not close. I may not be pointing north, but Canada's pretty close by. Our mortality rate in the United States is 2.5 times higher than Canada. Think about that. If we had the same percentage of folks dying in Canada as we do here, nearly 90,000 Americans would have died instead of 230,000 Americans. If we had handled this pandemic like Canada did, 140,000 of our fellow Americans might still be alive today. Think about that. Think about that. And yet, despite that, last week, when Trump was asked if he'd do anything different, he said, not much. Really? Not much. Can't think of anything. Listen, I understand the president was anxious to downplay it because he wanted to get credit for the economy that he inherited, and zero blame for the pandemic he ignored. But it doesn't work that way. The job doesn't work that way. Tweeting at the TV doesn't fix things. Making stuff up doesn't make people's lives better. You've got to have a plan. You've got to put in the work. And along with the experience to get things done, Joe Biden has concrete plans and policies that will turn our vision of a better, fairer, stronger country into reality. Joe's not going to screw up testing. Joe's not going to call scientists idiots. He's not going to host super spreader events around the country. What Joe will do is get this pandemic under control with a plan to make testing free and widely available, to get a vaccine to every American cost-free, and make sure our frontline heroes never have to ask other countries for the equipment that they need. That's what Joe Biden will do. Joe's plan will guarantee paid sick leave for workers and parents affected by the pandemic. He'll make sure that small businesses in every community, not just some, not just big corporations, but small businesses that hold our communities together and employ millions of Americans, can reopen safely. Donald Trump likes to claim he built this economy. America created 1.5 million more jobs in the last 3 years of the Obama-Biden administration than in his first 3 years. And that was before he could blame the pandemic. Joe Biden and I, with the help of a Democratic Congress, rescued the auto industry. Gary Peters was there. He told us to bet on Michigan, and we did. And manufacturing in Michigan grew by 15% over our last 4 years. Trump promised he'd make Michigan the manufacturing hub of the world again. It's up 1% under his first 4 years. 15% under Obama-Biden, 1% under him. That's Michigan, right here. We handed him the longest streak of job growth in American history. But the economic damage he inflicted by botching the pandemic response means he'll be the only president since Herbert Hoover to actually lose jobs. Herbert Hoover, that's a long time ago. Joe Biden and Gary Peters know that the key to a strong economy isn't cutting more taxes for billionaires. It's lifting up the prospects for working Americans. And Joe's got a plan to create 1 million new auto-related jobs by accelerating electric vehicle production. He's got a plan to create 10 million good, clean energy jobs and fight climate change and secure environmental justice, something that's relevant to Flint, Michigan. You know something about that. He'll pay for his plans by rolling back Trump's tax cuts for billionaires. And this is important. Joe sees this moment not to get back to where we were, but to build on the progress we made together and finally make long overdue changes so that our economy actually makes life a little easier for everybody. For the waitress trying to raise a kid on her own. For the student figuring out how to pay for next semester's classes. Or the shift worker always on the edge of getting laid off. Or the cancer survivor who's worried that her pre-existing conditions, protections will be taken away. Let's talk about health care for a second. Let's talk about health care for a second. Republicans love to say right before an election that they'll protect your pre-existing conditions. That's what they say. Well, you know what? Joe and I actually protected them 10 years ago with the Affordable Care Act. And since we did so, with no help from Republicans, no votes from Republicans, Republicans have tried to repeal or undermine the ACA more than 60 times. For 60 times, they've tried to take people's health care away. And when asked, why are you doing that? Why are you being so mean? You don't think these people should have health care? They say, no. We've got a new plan. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be terrific. Except it's been 10 years now, and they still don't have a plan. They're trying to bamboozle you. Instead of actually coming up with a plan, they've attacked the ACA at every turn. They've driven up costs. They've driven up the number of uninsured. Now they're trying to get the Supreme Court to take your health care away in the middle of a pandemic. Right at the time when people need health care. They've signed on to a case right now in the Supreme Court where they're trying to take insurance away from folks who need it with nothing but empty promises to take its place. And now Mitch McConnell is pouring millions of outside super PAC dollars into Michigan to try to beat Gary Peters because that's part of their agenda. Michigan, here is the truth. Joe and Kamala and Gary will protect your health care. They will expand Medicare. They will make insurance more affordable for everybody. And the reason you know that's true is because they were there when we did it the first time. And here
And when Americans vote, no matter how many threats he makes, America will be heard. When America's heard, I believe the message is going to be loud and it's going to be clear. It's time for Donald Trump to pack his bags and go home. We're done with the chaos, the tweets, the anger, the hate, the failure, the refusal to take any responsibility. We've got a lot of work to do. We've got a lot of work to do. And if I'm elected your president, we're going to do it. We're going to act. And we're going to need your help in doing it as well. We're going to act to get COVID under control. On day one of my presidency, I'll put in action a plan I've been talking about for months, already laid out, a national mandate, mask wearing, social distancing, testing, tracing, all things, as President Obama just said, that should have and could have been put in place months and months ago. A plan for a full and fair and free, I might add, distribution of therapeutics and vaccines when we get one. Imagine where we'd be if we had a president who wore a mask instead of mocking it. I can tell you this, we wouldn't have 9 million confirmed cases of COVID in this nation, over 230,000 deaths. We wouldn't be seeing a new record of cases. We're seeing right now 90,000 cases. Today, yesterday, 90,000 new cases. We wouldn't be facing, by the way, 500,000 in just the past week. This guy tells us it's going away. Only thing that's going to make it go away if he goes away. Folks, we wouldn't be facing another 200,000 deaths in the next few months. This president knew in January the virus was deadly. And trying to improve his image, he went up, tried to talk to Bob Woodward. He thought he could change his mind. But what he did, he let it be known. We're going to beat this virus, and we're going to get it under control. And the first step to doing that is beating Donald Trump. Look, Donald Trump keeps telling us what a great job he's done as president. Oh, man. Well, did you know President Obama and I, as he pointed out, created more jobs in the last 3 years of our administration than he did in the first 3 years before the pandemic? How about this? Or did you know Donald Trump's going to be the first president in 90 years who's going to finish his term with fewer jobs under his leadership than when he started? Look, that's a lot of presidents. That's a lot of crises. But only Donald Trump is going to have fewer jobs at the end of his presidency than when he started. You see, I and Barack understand something Donald Trump doesn't. Wall Street didn't build this country. You did. Working people built this country. And unions built the middle class. He's done nothing but wage war on American labor. I see the UAW sign out there. First outfit ever endorsed me when I was a 29-year-old kid. God love you. Look, we have a different view. We believe we should be rewarding work, not wealth, in this country. Under my plan, if you make less than $400,000 a year, you're not going to pay a penny in additional taxes. But the wealthiest people, the biggest corporations, 91 of the Fortune 500 companies paid zero in federal income tax last year. They're going to start to pay their fair share. The super wealthy are going to pay the same rate they paid at the beginning of George Bush's administration. And corporations are going to start to pay their fair share. Why should a firefighter, an educator, a nurse pay at a higher tax rate than someone making literally $1 billion? Or why should you pay more in taxes than Donald Trump? He paid $750 in taxes the 1 year we know of. He's yet to release. I've released 22 years of my tax returns. You can go online and look. He hasn't released one. He talks about corruption. What is he hiding? He owes 41 million bucks out there. Who's he owe it to? If you notice, he's the only president I know of that has a secret bank account in China. Paid 50 times more taxes in Beijing than he's paid in the United States. And this guy talks about corruption. Look, we're also going to act to protect health care. Trump and the Republicans just jammed through a Supreme Court nominee for one overwhelming reason. As Barack said, the president said, they've been trying over 50 shots to take out Obamacare, destroy the Affordable Care Act. But they're going to be in court, I believe it's 7 days after the election. Win or lose, they're going to be in court. If they get their way, 100 million Americans will lose protections for pre-existing conditions, including more than 4 million Michiganders. Donald Trump thinks health care is a privilege. Barack and I think it's a right for people to have bad health care. We're not only going to restore Obamacare, we're going to build on it. We're going to keep your private insurance if you like it, and you can choose a Medicare-like public option if you don't. We're going to increase subsidies to lower your premiums and deductibles. Out-of-pocket spending, reduce prescription drug costs by 60%. Look, we're going to make sure you keep the protections for people with pre-existing conditions. Meanwhile, Donald Trump laid out what he's going to do in his second term if he's elected to Social Security. The actuary at the Social Security Administration says if he gets that plan passed, it will, quote, bankrupt Social Security by 2023. Something millions of Americans live on, paid for their whole life. When I said back 6 years ago, as Debbie will tell you, when I said the Republicans were going to try to eliminate Medicare, everybody said, no, that's crazy. First thing Paul Ryan and the Republicans in the Congress did was try to cut billions of dollars out of Medicare. These guys mean what they say. I'm going to protect Social Security, Medicare and Medicaid, because it's a lifeline for so many hardworking folks. But folks, I have to admit to you, it's kind of personal with me. There's nothing worse that this president has done, in my view, than the way he speaks about our women and men in uniform and those who have given their lives. He called them losers and suckers. My son, Bo, was a major in the United States Army, gave up the Attorney General's job, and petitioned to be able to go with his unit to Iraq for 1 solid year after, as a U.S. attorney, being in Kosovo. I might add, I'm going to be a typical dad. He's the only foreigner in Kosovo that has a 12-foot memorial dedicated to him. The major highway they built, the Bo Biden Highway, because of his commitment. My son came home with a Bronze Star, the Conspicuous Service Medal, like so many others, before he passed away. But guess what? He wasn't a sucker, he wasn't a loser, nor any of you served. You're patriots. And just like all of your sons and daughters, your parents and grandparents who served, the president likes to portray himself. I love this. Likes to portray himself as a tough guy.